Hey, everybody. Welcome to DisrupTV. We're in the green room today. We have special co-host, Holger Mueller. We'll also introduce our guests. But we're trending towards Bitcoin 24K. It's too bad if you bought at 50. I'm just kidding. Hoping everyone luck. So markets are back, and I think there's a sense of optimism. So welcome. We got an awesome guest today. So Kathy, where are you? And what are you talking about today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ray. I am in Newport Beach, California. I'm from Hoag Health Institution, and we're going to be talking about digital health and innovation and a bunch of fun topics on the healthcare spectrum, I guess.
Excellent. Thanks for having us. We're happy to have you here. Sridhar, where are you calling from? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm in Tenkasi, India. It's a small town, rural India, near the southern tip. I run this company called Zoho. So we are going to discuss what Zoho is doing and what I'm doing here. So.
Very, very cool. We got the co-founder and CEO of Zoho. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, Holger, where are you calling in from? Our special guest host.
I'm also calling in from India. Happy to do my best Vala impression. I'm calling in from Goa in India.
Excellent. All right. Well, with this, we're going to send it back to you, Elle. You can do a countdown, and then we'll start the show.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to DisrupTV. This is our episode number 287. Believe it or not, Vala Afshar is off on a special mission and project. We'll have to ask him next week. But we have our amazing co-host, Holger Mueller. Holger is a vice president and principal analyst here at Constellation Research, one of the top HR technologists, HR tech analysts in the world, named to the HR Tech 100 all the time. And of course, he's looking at where the future of work is and the intersection of enterprise acceleration, what you can do in the future with your enterprise, and really where the world of infinite computing is headed. So, Holger, you're actually based in where at the moment?
Well, I'm based in San Diego, but I'm currently visiting Goa in southern India, medium India. You have to help us exactly where it's characterized to be in Vembu, right? Which part of India as a resident expert. But I think it's the first time we have a DisrupTV tour with 2 people out of India at the same time, right?
It is, and we thank you so much. It is so late in the night, so late in the evening, but yes. So welcome to DisrupTV. As you know, it's our weekly show, and I'm your co-host here, Ray Wang. And of course, we're going to kick off with our guest. Our first guest is none other than Sridhar Vembu, the co-founder and CEO of Zoho Group. He's known for unconventional choices. Sridhar started a product company in India when the services sector was all the rage in the IT sector. In 2005, he began the Zoho University program with 6 high school students who were trained for 2 years in computer science and eventually absorbed in the company. Currently, 15% of Zoho's workforce is made of ZU graduates. Instead of opening new offices in metro tier 1 centers, he's actually going to smaller towns and suburbs. And we want to talk about transnationalism and localism with him. And in 2016, the Tenkasi office located in rural India launched Zoho Desk, a product that was developed there. Sridhar has been instrumental in deepening and broadening the product portfolio at Zoho and stressing on the need for integrated suites. He's also advocating more on R&D than marketing. In fact, as a result, in 2017, they launched Zoho One, which has offered over 40 plus, I think it's 50 plus, based on the last analyst day we went to, products, and an amazing lineup there. So Sridhar, welcome to DisrupTV.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Hoag. Namaskar.
We're happy to have you here. Holger, you have the first question. Go ahead.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, Sridhar. I mean, it's an amazing company. People might not be familiar, but you really went beyond building everything by yourself, not just building a complete ERP suite of CRM and also on, but you're also vertically doing stuff. You have your own email, your own word processor, your own spreadsheet.
Yeah.
When you do a call with you guys, you have your own collaboration software. The interesting thing is what prompted you to build so much more than anybody else out of one hand?
Yeah. So this is, I go back to 1996 when we got started, now 26 years. The observation, and that even then, was India produced all of this software talent. Even in 96, that was true. And yet we did not have product-based companies. We had only IT services. It was clear to me then, with all the massive talent pool that we are producing, and demographically, if you look at what was coming, that we could build substantial technology companies out of India. That was obvious. We just had to put it together. So that was really the vision behind it. And in order to do this, we actually stayed private, because to really execute on this, you have to have a long-term outlook. And if you had to go public, we wouldn't have it. So that's why we combined this. To be able to do all this, we had to stay private, and we did. And now 26 years later, we have this expansive portfolio and still growing.
Yeah, but the genius behind this is actually different. You didn't charge enterprise pricing like the way the other SaaS companies did. And in fact, your cost structure is very different. It was built for SMBs. How did you come to that vision that if you want to play in this space, you have to operate in that space's cost and price model?
Yeah, and that's, SMBs are always price sensitive everywhere in the world. And it's even more true in India. So, and that means that you have to be extremely competitive in order to play. And you also have to offer deep value in terms of how rich is your full platform, and how many software is there, how much of the software is there to do their business. And what we did, with our end-to-end, that R&D strategy, we decided the way to save money is not spend so much on marketing, and instead spend on R&D. It will lead to slower growth in the beginning, and it did. Right? That was a trade-off. But once it takes off at scale, this is very viable. And the savings in marketing, then we can flow back into R&D and serve customers. Today we have over 600,000 orgs around the world that trust Zoho, and we are growing very strongly now. So the strategy works eventually. I should say.
Super interesting. And I love to hear it, because often companies don't spend enough on R&D, but lots on marketing. When was that takeoff point, Sridhar, that you saw now things are being noticed, the company's taking off?
It's particularly about 7 or 8 years. Starting in about 2013 or 14 is when at least the media and more broadly we became known. In fact, even as late as say 2008-9, there was an article that said the smartest unknown entrepreneur, referring to me. And so, I was happy to be unknown. That never bothered me. But it was saying that in India there is an entrepreneur and he's unknown, and that was the article. And so even at that point we had revenue, but we had no publicity at all, and we would not spend on publicity. So
yeah. But what was the breakthrough? Did you build a certain functional scope? Did you have a certain number of customers? Customers start talking to you, the famous Lighthouse customer. What was the takeoff moment for you guys?
In particular, the Zoho One we launched about 4 years ago. That is our full suite covering all our products end to end. That was a key catalyst. That's when things went vertical much more, and that's offered at an extremely attractive price point, and we called it the operating system for business. And initially, people were skeptical. People were saying, does it really work in SaaS, all that? But it did. Actually, it is. And today, that suite alone has over 60,000 customers and growing very rapidly. So that is a key takeoff event. It has also catalyzed the broader adoption, because people come into Zoho knowing that their needs will be taken care of.
It is amazing.
Critical brand image to get.
It is amazing. I mean, this is a concept Holger's been talking about a lot, enterprise acceleration. It's a super hot topic, right? And the fact that customers are growing into your software, right? But to keep up with that, you need skills and talent, right? It's crazy. I mean, in the US, we have 11 million job openings, 6 million people looking for jobs, another 6 million people that are totally missing. We have no idea where they went, right? Some are taking off, spending time with families. Some people are out of the market. Some people are still getting a government check. I want to know who these people are. There are other people who are just, they're done, right? They want to do something different, and they're in the middle of a job search or starting a company, and it's such dynamic times. I don't know how you thought about this or what the vision was, started going into the tier 3 cities. You talked about a concept called transnationalism and local at the same time. And talk about that, because it can't be easy upskilling folks from different areas, but you invest a lot of money doing that, at least from what we gathered from Zoho Day a few days ago.
Companies often talk about employee loyalty. I turned that around and asked, before we ask someone to be loyal, have we been loyal to them? Have we invested in creating and nurturing the talent? Only if we are loyal can we even talk about employee loyalty. That was the starting premise. And all of it, I think that way. Before I ask something of the world, what have I done to ask that, right? So, and that is why we say that. And there is, and I talked about the talent pool in India. There's a lot of raw talent in India, and it's true also in the US. If you go to tier 2, 3 towns, there's a lot of young people who don't have great opportunities. And
but let's be clear real quick. A tier 3 town has how many people in India, though? Our tier 2 towns are pretty small, so keep going.
In India, a tier 3 town would have about 100,000 people.
Okay. And a tier 2 town has a couple of million, right?
Tier 2, a million would be a tier 2 actually in India.
Okay.
Because
I want to be clear. I want to be clear here.
So the same as China, right? These
yes,
you have to scale everything up by a factor of 10 compared to any other country, because we are the largest. I think very soon we are going to challenge China as the highest population in the world. So
yes,
and the town we are in nearby is about 100,000 people. And these towns, even in the US, the smaller cities like this, don't have a lot of technology jobs all day.
McAllen, Texas. There you go.
McAllen, Texas, where we open. It's an exact and in fact, McAllen, Texas, and Tenkasi are very similar in terms of that profile: population, lack of tech jobs, all that. We felt that there's a lot of talent in these places that nobody is accessing, but we have to create and nurture the talent. It's a potential talent, latent talent. We have to bring that out. So that was the thing. Entrepreneurship is about solving problems. You don't get to complain that there's no talent or lack of talent shortage, all that. Go solve the problem. So that's the thing we created. So you have a talent pipeline you create and nurture talent, and then you have the market opportunity that we talked about. So putting that two together, that's really the Zoho story.
Transnational localism. There you go.
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
Transnational localism is basically the transnational localism part is recognizing that the same pattern applies everywhere. It's true in the US, it's true in Europe, it's true in China. The smaller cities, the smaller towns are not having the same opportunity as the big cities. And collectively, there's just, there's so much population still in these places. Demographically, they're actually richer. Because of affordability of home prices and all that, people tend to have more kids in these towns than in the big cities. So which means you actually have a lot of youthful talent that often has to migrate to the big cities. And if we can keep them, and we can keep them rooted there and provide jobs, you actually will have a really good, good employee, and it's also good for the company. So.
Yeah. I love what you said, like entrepreneurship is about solving problems, and you clearly have solved the problem of finding tech talent and growing and training your tech talent. But I also really love that you say that you cannot just expect employee loyalty. You have to show them that you like them. So it's the give and take. And the give very often gets forgotten in the Western world, right? So I think it's great to hear the approach on that. And is there any hint or tip you would give another fellow CEO founder of a tech company, software company, how to do the give to the employees?
Yeah, really it starts with What are you investing in creating the talent? A lot of companies, they use phrases like, we want you to hit the ground running. We want you to be productive from day one, all of that. But it's really, when a complicated job requirement scenario, even somebody with experience would require time to get into this. And we invest in training, a lot of it, and that's critical. And we demonstrate to the employee that we care about them, we invest in them. That's very important. That's skill development. And once you do that, the person becomes very productive over maybe a year or two, and that is when you start to see the magic. And our products, all our products really come from that, really putting that together. And you do that naturally. You don't have to ask. People are more loyal because they know this company invested in me, this company believed in me, and that's really the way that you put it together. And a lot of companies are not able to do that because they're too short-term oriented. So my real advice is, don't be so short-term in your thinking. Think longer term. Think in 5-year horizon. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Very good. Longer term thinking, and the company has my back, right? So that resilience, loyalty, sense of belonging are all important things we're learning in the first world are missing. So it's great to see how you were able to deliver that with a small startup at the time in rural India. Very, very great lessons to learn.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, one of the things that you've been advocating for are areas around ESG, and that's an area where you've been, very, very passionate about. How did you get to this state of thinking? Like, and what areas of ESG are important for you?
Yeah, of course, climate change is real. Climate change is, all of us, every human being on the planet has to have a strong responsibility for it. I passionately believe that we have to definitely think about our lifestyles, how we consume, what we consume, and all of those things. That's on the climate side. But also, I actually look at this holistically. It's also a social problem of inequality worldwide. And I am not a leftist by persuasion, I'll be clear on this, but I still do worry that societies that become dramatically unequal also will become unstable, politically, socially, all of that. So for the interest of social stability, fairness, all of that, you have to address these equality issues. And that also goes to speak for this talent creation, all that, because once you invest in it, naturally you can give people a hand up so that they can raise themselves. So that's how we come to that social part of it. And so this is the really two key parts for me, the whole climate issue, which to me ultimately is about how prosperity has to be contented. We have to have contentment along with prosperity. Now, if you have constant, more, well, we are going to destroy the planet. It's becoming obvious. These things, regardless of your political persuasion, these issues are now, are coming to the fore. In a similar way, if you have massive inequality, that is going to lead to social conflict, ever more conflict. So we have to address that too. And talent, nurturing talent, companies have a vital role to play. So those are the real goals for me.
Wise words, certainly. I have a sticking thing on this show where I keep asking for people, what is in your background? You have so many things hanging in your background. Why don't you highlight one of the pictures or art behind you for us, Sridhar, and why it's hanging there?
I'll do.
You want to show us one?
You see the person like this, that is Swami Vivekananda.
Yes.
Swami Vivekananda is a leading saint. I would say he's the kind of the patron saint of modern India in a way. He lived about 110 years ago, and he captured the vision. He was one of the first monks to travel to the U.S. He actually spoke in Chicago, and you can look him up. Swami Vivekananda. He traveled all over India. In his short life, he actually set the nation on fire in terms of a vision that's both very global in mindset and also deeply rooted in our own civilization. So that is, he's a role model for me, and so much of his writings I take inspiration from. That's why his picture is there.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I mean, he died at the early age of 39. And his famous speech was in Chicago, 1893. He brought Hinduism to the Western world. It was a very, very powerful moment, I think. So what else? What else do we have back here? We've got like some pictures. So
these
got
are
some
all
pictures.
various Hindu deities. There is Shiva there. This is Krishna. You have a lot of the Hindu deities, and typically you find them all over. When you travel in India, you will be, this imagery will be all over. So that's and I love that colorful imagery too, and so that's part of it. That's why I have that's there. It's simply on the wall, and I just happened to sit here, and it just became a signature.
Wow. Well, hey, it is amazing. Zoho was founded in 1996. Is that correct?
Yes.
We are 25 years in.
Years now.
Yeah, 20. Yeah. What do your next 25 years look like? What do you think? Real quick before we wrap up.
We are still investing in R&D, and you heard that in the analyst event, Zoho Day event a few days ago. And we are expanding on our portfolio, going deeper, and both depth and breadth in terms of product portfolio. And we introduced, for example, our new coming products, some of the products that I really can't talk about here yet, but it is, this commitment to R&D is a critical thing. And we believe that we still have a lot more to do. And we have some unique perspective on how software is developed. So we are going deeper into the process of software development, the tooling, all of that. So that too. So we'll see a lot more of these coming out in the next few years.
This is wonderful. We are so happy to have you here. We are here with Sridhar Vembu, CEO of Zoho. You can follow him on Twitter at SVEMBU_. And more importantly, thank you so much for staying up late and being with us here. So
thank you, Ray. Thank you, Hoag.
All right, take care.
Thank you for that. See you.
Crazy, Hoag. Look at this, the legend. So.
Yeah. The biggest, deepest, meanest suite which is out there. If you want to have something in the same UX with no cost of integration for employees, Zoho is the product to look at. Very impressive.
Wow. But speaking about legends, we got Kathy Azeez-Narain. She's the Chief Digital Officer at Hoag Hospital and a BT 150 winner. So she's been leading development at Hoag's digital strategy and transformation. And in order, she's been doing a lot of innovation, both in high quality care and exceptional patient experience. This is everything from optimizing relationships between patients, EMRs, health information data, digital tools, right? And figuring out how the patient experience comes together, right? Moving people from offline to online, of course, before we're moving to a digital health world. So Kathy's had tons of experience. She joined Hoag from one of my favorite companies, American Express, as a Centurion member, where she held various leadership roles, driving digital product marketing and data strategies for the company. And of course, she's delivered some of the first ever digital solutions for the organization, including mobile experiences that better connect businesses to their cards, centralized data platforms, in-house design and creative solutions for teams. So Kathy, so much for being here. This is amazing to have you. And of course, I'll leave Holger with the first question, but welcome to DisrupTV.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome, Kathy. Good to see another Southern California resident on the show, right? So first of all, I have an Indian guest now, a Southern California guest, so I'm not in Southern California. But BT 150 questions are always about career changes too, and Ray mentioned it. Why would you go from shiny American Express financial institution, go
Don't leave home without it,
messy, difficult, of course, helping humans, there's good aspects too, like into healthcare? What prompted your career change?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I loved my time at Amex. It was a truly empowering, amazing 15 years there. And when the question came up and this opportunity came in healthcare, I actually wasn't looking to leave. I really was having a good time and a good part of my career there. And so the draw was really a couple parts. One, it was Hoag. Their approach to how they were thinking about healthcare and what they wanted to do in the space was a draw. The other piece was I like to go do hard things. And so at the time when I heard, hey, there's an opportunity to bring that 15 years of experience that I had in financial services and think about digital and where it needs to go on the healthcare spectrum, it was appealing to me to come see, hey, can I bring any of that knowledge, that background, that skill set, and make an impact in this industry? So it was kind of twofold, a little bit of both. Hoag did a really good job of sharing what was special about them, and the pull and draw of the challenge kind of brought me over.
Wow, that's amazing. So Yeah, and when we think about this, like healthcare is not easy, right? I mean, we've had a number of folks here that have, come into healthcare. They've been completely blown away by how hard it is, right? And when you think about transition into healthcare, what changes? What are similar, right? What did you bring with you that actually made lessons learned from tech and digital in the financial service, the consumer world, applicable to healthcare, and what were your biggest surprises when you got here?
Yeah. I mean, I think, financial services being there for such a long time, I was there to see the journey it took because they weren't always on a digital spectrum either. And that did help as I thought about this industry because it's lagged as we think about digital technology and how it's been brought into healthcare. And so there's a ton that I could say I brought into the mix or with me as lessons learned. Nothing's one-to-one because the industry complexities are different. But there's a few, I would say, principles or things I learned that made Amex do it well in the parts that they did that I felt were important to bring into the mix when I took on this role at Hoag. One is the grounding with the customer. It's not actually the technology. It's just focus on the customer, focus on who you're solving for, keep them at the table constantly, obsess over them, honestly. Don't forget that the things you're building, the problems you're solving are really around the human that has to use the thing or the product. The second is, you need to constantly iterate. The market is changing and new ideas are popping up. The health tech startup world is on fire, like the fintech startup world was, which pushed Amex in certain ways as well. So you constantly have to be questioning what you've done and constantly iterate on what you've done. And I guess the last one that I'd call out is probably the team and the people you're bringing along. I feel hiring people smarter than yourself is important to acknowledge in the mix, bringing them on the journey, adding new skill sets into the industry. You can't really do the work ahead with the exact same talent set. So you're going to have to bring new talent set and skill sets into this. And acknowledging that and doing that in the right way and being really picky about who you bring along in that journey is something I would say I brought those lessons from my Amex time into what I'm doing now.
Very, very, very helpful.
A headhunter a long time ago, I was still in Germany, told me once A-class people hire A-class people and B-class people hire C-class people because they try to stay on top of them, right? So, and A-class people are not afraid to have people who work for them who are smarter and better for them, right? So I think that's a great guiding principle. But hey, interesting question for me is Christmas is coming, it's only 5 months. If I could grant you with my gray beard as a Santa Claus in healthcare, if I could grant you three wishes, what would you like to have happen? Maybe something go away which is difficult in healthcare with hyper, or some technology which you like to do, or something you would like Hoag employees or Hoag patients to be live with. What are the top 3 wishes if you could make them happen like this should happen?
Oh, wow. Holger, I hope you are the genie in this mix and it actually comes true. But I think, let me see, the first would probably be open source headless EHRs on the market. I really feel experience is going to be a critical piece to differentiate in healthcare. There's so many players. And in order to differentiate, you're going to need to figure out how you live on top of the AHR in a different way, right? Otherwise, we're all just getting out of the box solutions that we're trying to plug into our systems. So my one is open source, headless versions of EHR world, I would say is one. 2 is, I would say getting the talent set and the remote work world and flexibility in work, getting us all on the same page. Some industries are ahead in how adaptive they are to it. Some are not. Healthcare is still a little bit behind as we think about how fast we can move in that space and how do we make non-clinical work and roles adapt into that flexible mindset, because especially as you're trying to hire tech talent, that becomes a thing and an ask constantly. And let me think, the third has to be really good. I think the third would be what we've built or what we've done at Hoag. And when I say we, myself and my team, that it actually impacts health outcomes in a positive way for the OT community and the patient base. Whatever we're doing is not necessarily to just bring technology into the organization. And when I took this role, it wasn't about that. It was can we build product and put things on the market that actually improve health outcomes? And so I would guess the third would be, we've done something here that actually does impact it in a way that improves the patient experience and their outcomes.
Super important, and we're seeing it across the board almost everywhere. Now, one of the things that you've been talking about is technology. Tech on its own doesn't do anyone good, right? And as you know, technology is really about supporting any kind of mission or business or goals up there. And it's really about, right, who's got it figured out? Who's got technology down, right? This is like one of the most interesting things. It's been with us for so long, but who's figured it out well?
I don't know if anyone has figured it out well. And I think it's because you have strong players for sure, right? Obviously, you can point to all the big tech out there doing things in technology world and advancing it from cloud, AR, VR, etc. But as it relates to figuring it out, I would say if you to do that, you would have to know everything the customer and the consumer market is demanding. And it's changing so rapidly that we are all on our toes constantly. I don't think that anyone has it fully buttoned up to say, hey, we have this in the bag, it's done, we don't need to look at it anymore, and we'll win it for perpetuity. I think that it's constantly changing. Everyone should be on their toes. Consumer expectation demand changes overnight. Like I wake up every day, I read something new, I'm like, okay, that's changed. Let's look at X, Y, Z. And having that evolution and that ethos of like constantly relooking at what you have and if it's still working, I think technology has to constantly do that. So I don't know if I have a player that I'd say has it fully figured out, but I do think the startup world is on fire. They're doing a lot of great stuff in the niche spaces, right? How it all connects is going to be a big question. And then the health institution world, when I think about technology, they're on a journey. They can do some impactful things. But until we get to a world where there's a lot more open source, a lot more headless acceptance of like technology, a lot more cloud-based flowing of data, we're going to be on a journey to figuring that out as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, very, very interesting, right? And obviously security is a big concern. Like I said, I live in San Diego. My health data got hacked in the Scripps hack, right? We still don't know what really has happened. Security is boring until something breaks and something's bad. How important is the agenda? Is there any lessons learned? Are you doing something specifically at Hoag in that regards? Any thoughts, Kathy?
Security is number one, and just even coming from the background of American Express, like data privacy and privacy of customer information has always been high on the list of how we're doing things there. So I've brought that thinking even with me as I've come into healthcare, knowing that it is very highly regulated. We do have a lot of sensitive data. We can't have that leakage, right? But yet we are being tasked to build more consumer-centric product sets that do unlock and democratize more access to things. And so, one principle is just staying really close to our cyber partners internally. We're working hand in hand to ensure that whatever decisions we're making, whatever products we're going to put out there, are we doing all the right things to ensure they are as secure as we possibly can make them? The second is also staying ahead of it a little bit, right? Not just saying we have all the principles internally. We're also thinking about externally. We're looking at a few different companies that can come in and say, what's changed in the market on the tech side? And what's more breakable? What's less breakable? How do we really think about the security as everything is going into the cloud? And so we're doing both. We're adapting what our cyber team, who's awesome, have already put on the ground and ensuring that what we build and put out stays lockstep with them. But we're also thinking about new external measures that are out there to ramp up on that end of the spectrum and make sure that we don't put products out there that are easily hacked or non-secure.
Yeah, no, this is kind of fun. And when we think about, where the future is headed in terms of all these markets, right? Healthcare is the one that has a lot of opportunity, impacts the most lives, right? We're looking at all these types of things from population health management to personalized medicine. They're all data driven. That security and privacy aspect becomes even more important than ever. Do you think we're going to get to a point where like I can just throw out my EMR like the way I actually have like a Amex card, right? Or it's like all sitting in an NFT on the blockchain side, or am I like just dreaming?
I'd love to dream with you. I think, we thought things that were never possible become possible, right? So why not? Why would it not happen at some point in the future? And I think it'll come down to the patient or the consumer choice, right? We leverage that. Like if you are someone that really wants to activate that, at what point does that become your decision and not the EHR's decision or the health system's decision? And if that world does become more about choice driven, right? Like I'm opting in, I want to have that world. Why wouldn't it be possible? I think
I won't get you in trouble, but my API, my healthcare record is stuck behind Mumps APIs by someone. I don't know whom, but yeah. So I'll leave it at that. But
This is why my wish, right? When I was talking to Hoag, I was like, one wish is like open source. And I'm not saying open source to go share everyone's information, but it allows us to build better product and better output and better insight for the person, right? I feel like health data needs to be used more effectively to actually help people, not just be locked away in the way it is right now. And we have to figure out a way, to the point we're all making. Can we do it securely to the point where it's helping Kathy, it's helping Ray, it's helping Holger? Not saying that we all have to share everything all the time, but at least on the individual level, how do we make it smarter and more helpful to that person? So I'm dreaming with you.
Right. Yeah, we all hope for that, right? Making the difference of an active living healthcare record, right? Which helps with contraindications and all the useful things which you as a patient have to pay attention now, and you might not be able to catch that all. But you mentioned all the innovation happening on the startup level. If you look at the top end of the healthcare market, right, we see some consolidation with Oracle buying Cerner. As you, as a person in the industry, as an industry observer, what do you think of that development? And are you an Epic or Cerner? And who do you think will buy Epic?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting question. We are an Epic user here at Hoag. I thought it was very interesting that they did it, but I can understand why they did that, right? I mean, the EHR, for the most perspective, to your point, you need that from a regulatory perspective. You need that system that's going to store everything in that secure manner. And they figured out that market for the most part, right? And to strip that down, build your own, it's wildly expensive. And I've learned that now, being 2 years in, it's like, that's wildly expensive. And it's probably the benefit you get is not that great. So how we live on top of them, how we make them a subsystem that you can then differentiate on top is going to become more and more common. I think Google's on the same path, right? And my inkling is, if I saw an Epic path of them pairing with someone, I would presume it might be that, based on what I've seen Google doing on the Google Health spectrum and their EHR dabbles that they've done. I don't know for sure, but that would be my hunch, at least, if they were to go that path. And I do think Epic has seen a decent amount of pressure to figure out how they become a bit more less walled garden and more able to flex in the world of what people want to build on top of them.
Wow, pretty wild. So, hey, one of the things you probably learned at Amex was really how loyalty points work. And we were wondering how you could build incentive models in healthcare. If you ever thought about that, and would patients be interested in that for preventive health, right? You get points for doing certain things early, or you get points for potentially, taking an exam earlier, or actually doing a checkup earlier, or actually building that kind of things in some of the this value-based healthcare that we're actually heading in that direction. Is that something like in my dream state here, something that you're thinking about, like how to bring those things together within the healthcare ecosystem?
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned it, because we're actually testing a couple of ideas like that, the gamification world and an incentivized world, like what people feel are the incentives. Now, healthcare is a bit more emotive, right? When you're talking episodic care, very different. You're being treated. It's a different dialogue altogether. And I don't know if incentives necessarily work in that space, because the incentive is like, save my life.
Versus preventative. Yes.
Extremely. Preventative, though, there's a lot that we could be testing into, and we started to think about what and how to incentivize, and the incentives might look a little bit different. Senior populations, it might be around the loneliness factor, right? How do you create programs and incentives that help them with that as a cohort? Whereas the younger generation might be competitive. How are we thinking about lifestyle, especially in Southern California, Newport Beach? There's a lot of lifestyle and active lifestyle that people are into, the hiking, biking, and everything else, how do you take those nuggets and really make it into a competitive play as we think about preventative programs? So we've been testing a few things here at our innovation hub here at Hoag on the digital front. So I'll run back with you if we latch on to any nuggets that parallel path that Amic's thinking, but we've started to think a little bit about it as well.
Perfect. I was going to take my Amex points and convert them for a primary care visit, but I don't think that's going to happen yet.
I need Strava for healthcare.
I need to
I would be remiss if I wouldn't ask you about the artwork in your background. Tell us a little about it.
Yeah, there we go.
So, fun fact, we're in a new space and we're still like designing out all of the offices, etc. But this particular piece, I have just moved out here from New York and it's been 2 years now. And so one, it's a drawing, I guess, of David, and the graffiti kind of reminded me of New York. So I kind of saw it and I was like, oh,
Whoa.
I like the graffiti. And I want to bring that into my office. So there's no deep connective story there, just more of like, I was missing New York. I saw it and I was like, I'm going to just add that into my office space.
Wow.
Very nice.
Well,
David in the office. And he has what's this thing that he has? It's an orange one, right? So how he kills a giant, right? Very good.
We're here with Kathy Azeez-Narain. She's the Chief Digital Officer at Hoag, and you can follow her at Hoag Health _. Thank you so much for being on the show, and see you in Half Moon Bay at the BT 150 event. So take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wow, Holger. We've got some amazing guests, very, very smart folks, and we always bring in amazing authors to the mix. So who do we have next? Well, think about it. A really, really interesting individual. We've got Seth Goldenberg, author of Radical Curiosity, and he's the founder and CEO at Curiosity and Company. What a way to name a company. I love that name. So, Seth, you've been a designer, an activist, a curator, an entrepreneur, and you've been using this notion of questioning to catalyze innovation, cultural change. I bet you were the kid that always said, why? So founder and CEO of Curiosity & Co., one-of-a-kind bookstore, experience laboratory, design venture studio, and the creator of the Idea Salons, invitational thought leader retreats that tackle essential questions of our time. Goldenberg has led high-profile projects with clients such as Apple, Amex, Oprah Winfrey Network, and the governor of Rhode Island. It might be that Gina Raimondo person. He also founded Dialogue City, the civic arts festival for the 2008 Democratic National Convention. His work has been featured in the New York Times, Wired, and Fast Company, and he lives in the island of Jamestown. You can follow him on Twitter at Goldenberg Seth, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. That is the best intro ever.
Well, just typically Vala. He's not here today, so I have to channel my inner Vala to be able to pull that off. But hey, I do have a question for you. So, have you been in the Rhode Island area a lot? Have you been working there for quite some time? So, have you ever met a guy named Saul Kaplan who ran Business Innovation Factory? So,
I do know Saul quite well, actually. Yes. Have you had him on?
Saul and I were having like lobster rolls in the Cape on Thursday. So, so yeah. But yeah,
Biff,
so welcome to the show. I'll give you the first question, but I just wanted to set this. It sounded like you were like a Rhode Island guy. So,
absolutely. No, Business Innovation Factory is a fantastic community.
Love Biff. Here's hats out to Saul if you're paying attention.
Water, right?
So
must be something in the water. So what interests me is like very impressive what you're doing. Very disruptive way of teaching innovation, getting people to talk about things unscripted. At the same time, author. What got you to this place? Was it something where you had an inner calling? Were people catalyzing you? Was it a combination? How do you get where you are today, Seth?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, thanks for having me. I love your energy. I guess. My father was a philosopher. My mother was an educator, a school teacher.
Whoa.
And I grew up as an artist. Actually, I was exhibiting my paintings professionally in galleries by the time I was 11. So I think when these three forces of creativity and learning and philosophy kind of merged together, I was exploring the practice of radical curiosity before I knew to call it that, right?
Wow, very powerful.
Very interesting. Love the blue glasses, by the way. You always wear them, or is it like special Friday glasses? Or
no, these are fun.
Oh.
What's fun about these? They're 3D printed, actually.
Oh man, I just thought you went to Warby Parker and chose one.
Seth Goldenberg, you heard it here first, is in his blue phase right now.
So, but yeah. But this is awesome. Hey, so in the book, right, one of the things that you talk about, and it's important, it's really the legacy narrative. Go deep on that. What does that mean, and why do we have to have a legacy narrative?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much we have to have it. Actually, what we'd like to do is upend it.
Upend it, yes.
Upend the legacy narrative. So we practice in my studio cultural change, very ambitious social system, industry scale cultural change. And one of the things that we've found when we're really trying to design how things change is that stories and narratives surround us. We live by them. We kind of have identity markers by them. But actually, we're born into narratives that were authored long before we came into the picture. They are legacies that we have inherited that we didn't necessarily author or write. And we're walking around living in the rules by someone else's game, right? So for us, legacy narratives they're invisible. They're banking, they're public education, they're healthcare. All the social systems that we live by are historical narratives that actually innovators are in the process of reimagining, disrupting, and building emerging new narratives, right?
No, makes a lot of sense. And you're right. You want to shed those legacy narratives. You don't bring them with you. Like, why do we still have them? Right. Those and how to crack through that. So,
but we found
one of my pet peeves there is, so sorry, one of my pet peeves was I was thinking right away when Seth was saying this. In the tech industry, you have so many executive changes, people moving from A to B. And that the next company at B in 6, 9, 12 months, over a year. And they still say, I came from so-and-so, and that's why I did this and this. And they talk more about their past than what they're doing at their new station, right? So sometimes I wish, read back about Cortez burned the ships at the beach, right? So you're at the new place now. Stop talking about the legacy of the old stuff, which you were great.
I know.
Yeah, do you see it all the time too, Ray? It's terrible. And I don't know why they do this, but I guess it's the comfort level. Why do we have, burn the legacy is great, right? And we shouldn't do this, and we shouldn't have retro thinking, but why do we have this? Why do we do this as humans?
Well, I think this is why narratives have really interested us. I think we tell ourselves stories because it makes us comfortable, right? It's hard to feel stable and that we understand ourselves when we're upended or we're de-linked from things that we recognize. So I think we find we grapple onto and hold close narratives that bring us comfort because at least we recognize them. But indeed, I think, look, the practice of radical curiosity, radical, that term radical comes from radicalis, the Latin root of literally the idea of roots, deeply rooted. So we're interested in, here in my practice, it's not so much just kind of passive curiosity, but radical curiosity is the deep human condition question. What do we really mean by health? What is safety and security? So when we ask questions about racism or police or money, we tend to still skate at the surface. And to your point, I love your example. A lot of leaders lean on anecdotes and case studies they recognize. So actually, more rarely than we realize are we really doing disruptive things. We're often just swapping out and staying at the surface.
You also mentioned the fact that, unlearning is a form of activism, right? So I got to shed this legacy narrative. I got to unlearn things, right? And how do you do that in a culture where transformation is already hard enough? So what are you doing to enable that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because learning in traditional schooling, it seems to me we just keep adding, right? More electives, more curriculum. You get into your job, we now have to upskill you. It's like all of learning has been additive. I think the idea of unlearning, because it's based on questioning, is to maybe question what we think we know to be true. Unlearning the models that were untouchable. I have a chapter in the book saying education is too big to fail, but maybe it should, right?
That's a great point, right? Like, how do we make that happen? So yeah.
Because interestingly, only through failure and the destructive composition of that, and hopefully nobody gets killed and hurt and so on, you reinvent really and go through the pain to rethink the process because of the urgency, right? very common in sports and Olympic sports, nations trying to compete better, failing, or whatever, getting kicked out of the World Cup as a European soccer fan and so on. Then they start to do the fundamentals, do the youth studies and so on. So I think the unlearning is more like bury the old best practices, right? But I had one more question. It's just a strategic thinker, right? It's always a question about the last book you wrote and the next book you write. I love to ask you, what is the book you really want to write, but realistically you will never get to in this lifetime?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. What an original question. You are radically curious. I love this. Luckily, I'm young, so I hope I have many books left in me. It's especially with the joyfulness that I see that you run your show and these dialogues. I've become really fascinated with humor. I love comedy as a strategy to maybe get us comfortable asking harder questions. I do have one chapter, but I can imagine it to your beautiful question as an entire book. I actually look at Dave Chappelle and Hannah Gadsby as two controversial but exciting characters in how humorists have become today's philosophers. And I love the weaponization of humor to actually get us to drop our guard to maybe talk about the real shit.
Yeah.
Wow. First Amendment freedoms and curiosity and humor all in one there. So definitely a lot of fun stuff all rolled up into the mix. So, but hey, I'm going back to the book here, and there's a lot of stuff here, right? And you said there are a couple of things that I was really fixated on, like how do you see innovation as a practice of awe? I thought that was kind of interesting, and the related topic of awe-based leadership. They seem to go hand in hand. Like, what is awe, right? I mean, our attention spans are like, so short these days. Like, how do you even get someone to that awe phase?
Yeah. So awe, it really fascinates me, especially I began as a painter, as a young child. We're very aware of the notion of the sublime and the spectacle. And awe, it's most often understood as, you're standing in front of the Grand Canyon or in the United States, or some gorgeous and beautiful, and you have this sensory experience. But there's wonderful new science about how awe actually affects our brain, the neuroscience of what happens in our psychology. How do we reorganize ourselves because of awe? So what I've discovered, which really plays well into our practice of experience design, something we do in our studio. Awe it's so big and it's such a challenging idea. Our minds literally have to reorder themselves to accommodate and acquire something that does not compute. You often say colloquially, "Whoa, that blows my mind." This language, it blows my mind. It's almost like a kind of informal way of saying, literally, my mind is reordering its operating system to acquire new code. And I think innovation as a practice of awe, or the leadership through the language of awe, I believe that the next frontier of leader will need to use and harness awe to challenge and expand what we think is possible. Really challenging new frontier leaders. They're not going to just move transactions and reorder things.
Boring. You're
going to have to ask questions that use awe to actually literally blow our minds.
Very, very good thought in that. My concern there is, and I see this, that we are so overstimulated. We see so many things. There's so many things happening, right? How much awe can you realistically produce, right? And you see that sometimes by leaders overawing, I would always say, by overhyping everything, and everything is great and everything is awesome, right? Whatever Steve Jobs keynote and so on, where he's going to say off another 100 times in the next 30 minutes, right? So it kind of like takes away from that, right? I think the mixture of that is the art, right? What kind of advice can you give to a leader to trying to follow the awe strategy, but not to overuse the awe argument enough?
Well, no, I think it's a very important point. But I would challenge that fire hose that you're talking about, I'm not sure that's actually awe. And I think we've been duped. Right?
Hey.
I think there's a kind of dopamine of the media addiction or the kind of, look over here in the sleight of hand of the magic trick, all of that excitement is not really awe. Awe forces almost all 5, 6, 7 senses, a higher order, almost kind of spiritual experience that you really kind of have to, and this I think gets to your question, you almost have to slow down in order to acquire a new idea. I think one of the things we do with our clients, with leaders from Silicon Valley and New York and across every industry, we actually literally help teach them how to slow down in order to welcome true awe into the objective of what's even worth waking up in the morning to do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Slow down to hurry up, right? So very common, right? And often we run too much and we don't even get that thinking or the chance for our synapses to reconnect in the new way, right? To leverage the awe. That's, I think, great advice.
Well, sorry, go ahead. I won't interrupt.
No, jump in. You're ready to go.
I love this particular thread. I think the running is, I mean, look, in a world based on capitalism, transactions make the merry-go round, right? And I think actually, in some ways, COVID and the pandemic forced a slowdown in which I think the whole world confronted a kind of existential set of questions. And some of that awe, a kind of legacy of awe in a funny way, forced us to ask ourselves what mattered. And I think we don't need a pandemic to welcome that kind of self-inquiry. And actually, I think when we think about value creation, whether it's business or government, awe is an interesting device because it really questions what's meaningful or what's valuable. And I think, all of business is full of transactions, but the project ahead of us may be to weed out what is really meaningful and what's just moving, the digits back and forth.
Yeah, we are definitely seeing the shift, right? And in terms of how people think about leadership, how people think about, what they need to do to inspire folks, the whole notion of where we work, how we work, when we work, that's shifting as well, right? Our purpose and mission are shifting. It's something we call great refactoring, and people are looking at that. And one of the areas that's interesting is really about creativity and imagination, right? And you think about this in a different way. You think about creating equal rights for imagination. And I was curious, how do you explain that to someone? What are equal rights for imagination?
Yeah, I think we often think about economic inequity. We introduce the idea of question inequity in the book. Who has the power to frame the question?
Yes.
Who has the authority to set the agenda? And it's as though imagination has become a luxury good.
Yes.
So if one of the outcomes of an economic inequity is that the mere survival is the project, the right to even author a question seems out of reach for too many of us. And so part of the rebalancing of economic inequity is also by design and imagination and authority to set the agenda of what questions should society be engaged with.
Right. I mean, organizationally, tayloristically organized away, the innovation center, the excellence center will take care of that, right? You just think like you said, the transactions. This is why I found historically, if you look at it, the Kanban concept was so powerful because it got the people building the cars on the transactional side, on the working belt to say, what can we do to make this better, right? So,
hey, remember that conformity is the source of all evil. So,
So I love it.
But Seth, I have to ask everybody in the background. I only see half a painting over here.
Yeah, what's going on back there? We're gonna zoom in on that. What is in the background here? So,
I am calling you from Switzerland today.
Oh,
I'm in a hotel room. I do not know what the painting is. I am a visitor, a stranger in a strange land. I apologize.
Wow.
Tell us you're in Switzerland.
Are you speaking?
Do you speak German, Italian, or French outside?
French.
Ooh la la, très bien alors. Okay. Excellent.
That is awesome. We are here with Seth Goldenberg, author of Radical Curiosity and founder and CEO at Epic Decade. You can follow him on Twitter, Goldenberg Seth. Very, very interesting thoughts. And of course, get his new book, Radical Curiosity, where books are sold. So thanks for being on the show, Seth. Really appreciate having you here. So, and have a wonderful evening. So,
delight.
Very cool. It is Friday. Happy Friday, Holger. We're on DisrupTV here. And our
it is Saturday for me in India already.
It's already a day has flown by. A day has already flown by for you. So what do you think about the guest today? We've been looking at different things. We've started talking with Zoho CEO, and founder with his philosophies. We had a chance to talk to our chief digital officer, BT150 guest, Kathy, and of course we talked to Seth, really talking about radical curiosity. So all these steps are coming together in one spot. And of course, right? Any thoughts from your end?
Super interesting guest, right? Spanning half the world, 12 and a half time zones, right? Not counting me being here. But I mean, very interesting. The humbleness, the realization of how important climate change is, how to give back, the transnationalism going to second centers with Sridhar, with Kathy bringing a fresh set of eyes into the healthcare space, and their wishes for open source as a standard in e-healthcare. And I think she said she wants Google to buy Epic. Did I hear this right? And then super interesting ideas from Seth, right? My synapses, right, are dancing right now about radical curiosity and ideas. So super interesting guest. What a privilege to be here, moderate this with you. I had a blast.
Well, our friend Gurvinder is definitely watching the show. We are watching episode 287. Next week, we're going to have episode 288. Brad Van Leeuwen, co-founder and CEO of Cloudera. Jeff Lerner, author of Unlock Your Potential, and a special surprise guest coming up. So you can follow Disrupt TV every Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And thanks for being on the show. Happy Friday, Holger. Happy Saturday in your case. Have a wonderful show and a wonderful conference next week out in Delhi. So if it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move back to the green room. If anybody's guests are there, we'll see you there in a bit. Over to you, Al.